Welcome to the Fitness and Nutrition Simplified podcast, where we take all the confusing, conflicting information and break it down so that you can live your healthiest, strongest, most energized life. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons. Let's get it started.
Record to the cloud.
Okay.
Here we go.
It's funny, I'm a big podcast guy now. I never used to be. When I worked at Cranford, I was driving from Westfield, so my commute was like 6 minutes, and I had the kids with me. So,
yeah,
like, hey guys, I need to be quiet for 6 minutes so Daddy can listen to them because they hate it. I wasn't even listening to them then, but now I started listening to them, and because I have the time. My commute now is like 25 to 30 minutes, so I have the time to listen to them, and I love listening to podcasts. But like, if I forget to press pause, or in my truck, like it auto plays when I turn the car on after I pick the kids up because I go right from school.
Yep.
And then it turns on and you hear like Mike Israetel or like Steve Hall or Eric Helms talking. And they're like, Daddy, tell them to stop. Mean. They all think that they sound mean because they're just men talking or like, to revive strong.
Well,
Steve
to
Hall.
to be fair, those guys are usually shitting on somebody.
Oh, man. I listen to a few from Broderick Chavez, Team ESP, and he just sounds like he hates everyone. He's just so loud and he's swearing all the time. It's like when his voice comes on, the kid's like, Daddy, he's so mean, stop. And I'm like, well, actually, he's all right. Sure, he's mean. Moana, we'll put Moana on.
He may be mean, but he's right.
Right, he is right. You're all right. Yeah, but talking about the capturing good stuff on the podcast, I listened to Iron Culture podcast yesterday with Eric Helms. Like Eric and Omar, they bullshitted. You're cool if I swear?
Oh, go for it. I put explicit on every single one just in case.
And I wanted to be just like, guys, just stop. Just stop. It was like 25 minutes of BS, and like I didn't even get to any of the good stuff. It was the one that they just put out, exercise selection. And I'm like, I want to hear what Rick has to say about exercise selection and variation. And I literally spent 25 minutes just listening to them talk in the beginning. And I was like, I'm cool with that, but I wanted to hear some of the good stuff. So I didn't even get to hear any of it. And I had to hear it on the ride home yesterday. Like on the ride in, it was just the BS, and the ride home was the good stuff. So
that's like a mind pump for a couple of those that I listen to. Like, it's just the intro's an hour long. And I'm like, I'm learning stuff, but I'm like, whenever there's like, I usually tune in for the intro, but when there's like a title that's like, I'm interested in learning and I got to wait the hour, I'm like, come on.
I know. It's sometimes they make the title based on like, all right, we're going to have this hour-long talk, and then I'm going to make the title based on something that we talked about for 5 minutes. And then I'm like, all right, cool. This seems like a good topic. And then I'm just like, you guys talked about that for like 5 seconds. Like, that's all you guys talked about that thing for. So like, I like the Revive Stronger. That's my favorite podcast. And I think Steve Hall does an awesome job with that. And like the people he brings on are awesome. And I'll look at the title and I'll be like, oh, this is cool. Like hypertrophy, something, whatever. And then it's like, they talk about, he like has questions from people for 45 minutes. And I'm just like, I knew the answers to all these questions. It was only one question that I was really looking for. And they talked about it for like 1 minute. But that's the nature of the beast. You know, you're listening to people talk, trying to gather what you can. And it's fun.
It's all about that SEO. Got to make it good.
What is that? SEO? What is that?
Search engine optimization.
So
like that's why all of mine are like how to or why you do this. And it's like, because people will literally type that in and be like, how the hell do you lose weight?
Tell me about it. Like, I teach high school. That's all they do. Like, I ask them questions on an assignment, and it's just like, they Google that question. I'm like, guys, if you just use keywords, you'll find like pages dedicated to it. You don't need to take the answer that Google puts for you, like on the Google page. I'm like, well, Google says this. It's like, well, no, Google has an algorithm that they're used to able to take the snippet that includes your keyword, and they just throw it right there. But that's all you see. If you just search for the keywords and you find the articles that you're taking it from, you can read the whole article and have all of the information. And not
I feel like there needs to be a class on learning where to get info from, like that magical .org or like .gov. And you're like, there's probably good information here.
I know. And like, I said this in high school all the time. And like, if I ask for references, don't use Wikipedia as a reference. We got that part. But if you need references, and I did this in grad school, I would, like the topic that I was talking about, I would go to Wikipedia's references, and they'd have like 50 references. And you'd be like, oh my goodness, this is so much good stuff. And it's all like real real scholarly articles and scientific papers, and
Yeah.
like, okay, use Wikipedia's references that they use to make that article. And you have your supply of references right there. If a grad paper asks for 25 references, go to Wikipedia on that topic. Like, pick the ones that you want to use. If you find something in the Wikipedia article that you really like, well, it's probably cited, and then you can find exactly where they got that from, and you can cite that, and don't cite Wikipedia. So
yeah, that's why I like Labdoor and Exam, or more so Examine, because Examine like leaves like 50 references, and you're like, all right, I'll just take my pick.
I like Examine too. Sometimes if I'm looking for something specific, like it's usually like an ingredient in a supplement or something, and I'm just like, I'll look that up and I'll be like, all right, whatever, like ashwagandha, Examine. Because I just want the Examine result. I don't want everyone else's results. I want to see what Examine has to say about it, and then like other PubMed things I'll look at too. But yeah, it's just like
that I want to look into, because that keeps coming up, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like clients will ask. That's literally the only thing I use Examine for anymore, because I barely take supplements other than creatine.
Me too.
So it's like, it's just to answer questions and be like, is this going to kill you? All right, you're fine.
It won't kill you? Okay. Yeah, I use ashwagandha because is that what you're saying? You're interested in that? People ask about that?
Yeah. I just want to know about it.
Yeah, I didn't know much about it. I started taking it like a week ago, just because I've read that it helps deal with stress, and just I have anxiety, and it's something that like as I've gotten older, I've become aware of and like more comfortable with it. I remember being a kid and being like, oh yeah, nothing stresses me out, but not realizing that like it was anxiety, just not knowing what it was. And now I'm just like, yeah, I get anxiety, but like accepting that and understanding that is kind of like, okay, I just need to now know that that's what it is, and be okay with that, and just give myself more time to like, okay, don't rush when you're doing this, because it's going to stress you out. You'd rather not rush, just take your time. Yeah, it might take you a little bit longer. You might not get there, but it's like the stress that comes along with the rushing makes everything just worse. So I started looking into the ashwagandha for stress things, purposes. I've only been taking it for like a week or something now, and I've read that it takes a few weeks for it to actually like start kicking in. And I don't really know if it's one of those things where it's like you significantly notice it, like pre-workout, you take it once and you're just like, where am I?
Yeah. It's like it could be like CBD, where it's like, all right, I think I'm feeling it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And even if it is placebo, it's one of those things where it's like being really stressed and having anxiety sucks. So even if it doesn't work and it is a placebo effect and you start to feel less anxiety, it's like, okay, I don't care. It could be like, it could be ground up gummy bears that they're putting in these capsules, and I'm taking that and I'm feeling better, as long as it's not messing with my macro.
Exactly. Do you know the strength coach, Charlie Weingroff?
No.
He's a big name in like the rehab space and like the 40 over crowd. And I've seen him talk a handful of times, and he had a saying, like he was basically just going off, like kind of like how the guy you were talking about before. He just like gets angry and goes off on tangents. And he had this like hour-long talk where he's like, if you do this and this, I hope you fry. And I'm like, I love this guy. And then he has this one out of nowhere where he's like, all right, if you're cueing this person and trying to get them into a position and nothing works, and you put a bunch of peanut butter on your hand and slap them in the back of the neck and say, fuck you, and all of a sudden it works, does it really matter? So it's like, it's like placebo. It's like, is it necessarily a bad thing? Not always.
I know. Yeah. The placebo, it's like, unless it's a huge waste of money or it's something that could have other effects, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, like who cares? The state of mind is so important, that like your positive state of mind can contribute to positive physical, repercussions. I guess repercussions wouldn't be the right word, but just, effects, that it's like, okay, I don't care. I don't care if it is a placebo. And I mean, studies have shown the placebo effect is a real thing, and it's most due to positive mindset.
I actually just put an email out about that like a week or two ago, and I was looking up, and they have these things called it's basically like fake surgeries. Like they'll do like minor procedures that if they don't necessarily do the procedure, it's not like the end of the world, but they do like half the group they actually give the procedure to, other half they cut them open and they don't do a thing, but it leaves the scar, so they think that they got something from it. And the group that got nothing sometimes had the same results as the people that did, just from the straight up belief. So I'm like, this makes total sense. Like all those like what are they called in like tribes and stuff, like the medicine man. Yeah, like now it's starting to make sense where it's like, if you can convince somebody enough that this is going to work, sometimes it literally will, even though there's no mechanistic reason behind it.
Yeah, like when in CP bio with freshmen, I would teach about the placebo effect. It would be like, okay, group one, diet pill, group two does not, but we're not giving them nothing. We're giving them a flour pill. Diet pill, fake flour, fake diet pill.
There's calories in there.
0.5. It's sucralose. We're giving them sucralose, so no real calories.
Okay.
Like these people here, they're getting the diet pill, so they're going to follow through with the nutrition. They're going to follow through with the workout. They're going to have a positive mindset. They're going to be positive about it. These people here, they're getting a fake pill, but they think it's the diet pill. So they follow through with the nutrition, they follow through with the workout plan, they follow through with the positive mindset. If you're giving them nothing, you're just like, okay, you guys get the diet pill, you guys get nothing. These people over here are like, okay, well, fuck that workout plan because that's going to not going to lose the weight that they're losing. So I'm not doing it. So it's like, that's a controlled experiment. You need to have that. The control variables are all in place. Like you're getting a pill, you're getting a pill. Because to run a proper controlled experiment, you need to be only changing one variable. And if you change, like if they're getting the pill and they're getting nothing, well, you now have two variables. You have a pill, not a pill, the diet ingredients, the not diet ingredients. So what is it? Is it the mindset of getting the pill or is it the ingredients in there? So to run a controlled experiment, you need to be making it so it's one variable causing your variable, which are your results. In this case, it's the ingredients that are causing the difference because they're getting the ingredients and they're not. It's not that mindset that comes with getting the pill. So
exactly. That takes me back. That takes me back to college where like all of us would get fat burners and we like, oh dude, this totally works. But we completely neglected to mention that like nutrition greatly improved and we hit the gym even harder because we wanted to make the most of it.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I'm not going to start my diet until I get on the fat burner. It's like,
exactly.
Okay. So is it okay, you could probably not take the fat burner and just do the diet and you'd have the exact same results. But yeah, it's that placebo makes the mindset.
It does.
Dollars because of it. And I'm sure the caffeine probably contributes a little bit of a thermogenic effect, but other than that, it's probably not doing anything.
Yeah. Monster's the best fat burner.
Yeah.
Monster and Bang.
I know. Yeah. I drink coffee in the morning and I haven't taken pre-workout in probably a year now. I read something, I think it was Mike Iserchel. I'm a big Mike Iserchel guy. And so I think I read
that
something.
That does not surprise me.
I love it. If I could contribute to a podcast the way he does, like just listening to him, it's like, I love listening to the way he talks. Like if there's like a round table, I'm like, those other guys are so boring. He's contributing more, yet making it fun to listen to. But he, I think it was him who said like, if you're training in a caloric surplus and you're training with a ton, if you're eating a lot of carbs, you're going to get a gnarly pump. You don't need pre-workout to get an awesome pump if you're taking in a lot of carbohydrates. And I was like, I'm going to try that. So on my over a year now, it was by my last mass phase at the beginning, I was just like, all right, I'm not trying pre-workout. And I'm just getting rid of it because the positive not positive mindset, but like the feeling that I have of being satisfied from all of this food, the caloric surplus that I'm in, that makes me feel good. I'm excited to train now. I'm excited to put on some size. And I'm eating, at that time, it was like 600 grams of carbs a day. And I was getting awesome pumps just from taking in a ton of carbs. So I'm just like, all right, I'm not going to start using pre-workout again because it's just getting better. And as I increased the carbs throughout the mass phase, it was just like pumps just stayed awesome. And at that point, I kind of like weaned myself off of pre-workout. And then I entered a maintenance phase where I was just eating at maintenance. And I was like, okay, pumps are still good. I don't need a pre-workout. I love training. I'm always pretty high energy. So it's not like I need to be focused. I'm, always motivated to train, except like last week of a mesocycle when I'm just like overreached and ready to die. But like,
feel like death.
Yeah. even now, like I'm 11, 12 weeks into a fat loss phase. And I haven't even thought to myself, like I have some pre-workout at home that I kept. And I'm like, okay, the tail end of that cut phase, when I'm kind of dragging a little bit, I might need some pre-workout. So I'm going to hold on to that. And I haven't even thought about it. Like, this is the first time I'm actually thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I do have that. I think it's like Animal Rage. I think I have like a quarter of the container still sitting in the cupboard. But I'm just like,
I knew they still had some fans. I have yet to see a lot of animal products, but I'm like, there's definitely some undercover people that have their stuff that keep contributing. I don't know how they're still around.
I don't, it's bigger in New Jersey just because so many of the gyms will either work at that, like, you know, people who work for Animal, or like the stuff is, you know, it's in New Jersey, it's in New Brunswick. But I don't really see much of it. And especially with like the Arnold being canceled and being modified, like the scheduling, I know the Animal Cage was a huge thing for them at the expo.
Oh, that was sick. I witnessed it. I don't know if you got the chance to make the trip. Because I know you were there.
That was the year they canceled it, the COVID year when they canceled the expo. It was so unfortunate because like I wanted to lift at the Arnold so bad and just be part of that whole thing because I'd gone to it. I went to it. I think I went the first time I was in, I think it was 2010, around that time. And I was like, next time I come here, I'm not going to be a spectator. So like, that's how I think about things. I'm just like, sometimes I'm an asshole about it. I'm like, I'm not going back to that place until I'm competing. And I didn't go back.
Yeah.
My family lives in Columbus. I could have gone very easily whenever I wanted to, but I was like, I'm not going back to that place until I'm competing. So I finally qualified for the Arnold, and I'm like, I'm so excited to lift at this meet here. And then COVID happens and they canceled the expo. So the meet was still going on, but the expo was canceled. But yeah, I went to the cage. This is probably, like I said, 2010, 2011. No, 2008, actually. It was 2008 because I was still in college. But it was crazy. It was awesome. It wasn't nearly as big of a deal as it was back then, as it was the previous years when powerlifting, like, it was the time of the raw revolution in powerlifting. People were still like multiply gear and all that stuff was still the big thing in powerlifting. Like that was around the time of the raw revolution. People started really training raw and lifting raw, and powerlifting became raw in that 2009, 2010 period. But
that seems like right around when everybody started getting crazy about it. I know, like, that was when we first met, 09, 2010.
10, 11, yep.
10, 11, yeah. So, I mean, what's that?
Your junior year was 2010, 2011, right? You graduated?
No, I graduated that year.
Okay.
Because I was in West Virginia fall of 2011.
Okay. So were you a senior the year I started there?
I guess so.
I guess. Yeah, I thought you were a junior for some reason. But I started at Cranford 2010, 2011, my first year there.
But speaking of that, I had a little bit of a nostalgic moment the other day. I was throwing my straps on and I'm like, shit, I have had these for a while. Like I have VersaGrips that are literally like, they've got to be like 7, 8 years old. And I'm like, oh shit, I remember when Brennan gave me the wrist straps for the very first time and showed me how to wrap them around. I'm like, thank God for that, because I would have totally messed that up.
I have a few pairs that I have in the weight room here, and like this is so silly. The kids here, like our hex bars, the old, I guess it was like strength coach or gym teacher or whatever, he put masking tape around all the bars where the knurling is to enhance grip. But as we all know, masking tape does not enhance grip, or athletic tape or something.
Yeah.
So the
must be a Poliquin guy.
Yeah. There's a paper towel holder right here. You can see where I'm pointing. There's a paper towel holder right there. And the kids take paper towels and they would wrap them around the hex bar handles to try to give them some grip because the tape makes it slippery. And I'm like, guys, hold on. And I went to my gym bag and I brought out, I have like an axle straps, a regular strap. And then I have like the ones like the Olympic lifting ones that like form into one piece. And then I have a pair of the Cobra grips, which is basically VersaGrips. It's just cheaper. Yeah. And I was like, here you go, guys. Let me show you how to use these. And now every time they're just like, oh, hey, can I get those straps? Can I use your straps? I'm just like, yeah. Yep. I got you.
Yeah. Anytime anybody asks me about wraps and stuff, like I remember the gym I was at was like, it was all these like women that were like 40, 50, 60 years old. and they're doing trap bar deadlifts and they're like, my hands. And I'm like, we got to get something like the Versa grips would have been so helpful. But like we were using like, those like mesh things they throw on the mats for like Pilates, like that are like kind of sticky, like enough so your foot doesn't slip. We would use those and they'd work okay. So if anybody's listening and wants the very budget one, you could try that. But I suggest the Versa grips for sure, or the legit ones, like the really wraparound ones that do like 2-3 trips around the bar.
I usually just do one because I want it to be quick. I don't want to, like, if I'm deadlifting, I don't want to have to be down there and like wrap it up. I'll usually just do one quick wrap around, and you still have to use grip strength at that point. And I know one of the things against using straps is it's like, well, if you can't grip it, you shouldn't be doing it. And it's like, all right, if I'm pulling 640 for sets of 6, my grip is not going to be able to hold on to that for that long.
And not a lot of people want to go through the fun of doing hook grip.
Right. I know. I use hook grip when I'm training for a meet, and I will usually only do it for sets of 2 or lower, because it's like, all right, if I'm doing sets of 3, I'm probably far enough out from a meet that I don't need to be perfecting it. And I know how to do it, and I figured it out, like what I need to do. And it's just like, okay, let me just like dust off the rust on that technique. And then it's like, all right, we're good. But I would, grip strength is, if you're strong enough to hold it, okay, great. But like, I wouldn't say build up your grip strength until you're able to actually hold that. It's like, if you're trying to do bent over rows with 315 for sets of 15 reps, it's like, okay, I don't expect you to be able to hold that double overhand and do rows with that long. So your back then becomes undertrained because your forearm strength is the limiting factor. It's like, yeah, you want your grip strength to be strong enough to hold that, but do you really want to sacrifice months and months and months, potentially years of back gains so that your forearm strength can come up? It's like, no.
Yeah. And if you, it's almost like if you do like supplement stuff for grip strength, like you'd be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So you could wrap up during deadlifts and stuff, but then like do like pull-up hangs instead at the end of the workout, do them for like 10-20 seconds. Majority of people cannot do that. So it's like you're going to get better at your deadlift, get better grip, and work your back more than you would have if you didn't use them. But it could also, I know at least for the people I work with, it works in the other way, where it's like, does 400 pounds really yield a lot of benefit compared to 300 for like a desk warrior? Sometimes, no, that could push them into more pain. So using grip as a limiting factor can help a lot too, because they still are challenging themselves, still mentally getting that kick of like, I'm really pushing it, but the grip is going to give out before like their lower back can compensate and cause havoc, possibly.
And I could apply that same logic to high school kids that want to deadlift 405, but should only be doing 315 for reps. And it's like, if you can't hold on to 405, then you shouldn't be doing it, because your back is going to round. You're going to be slamming the bar on the ground, and it's going to end bad for everyone. I mean, you know what that's like.
Oh, I do. I was going to say, there were many people like at Cranford High School that could do 405, 495 and above. We never used wraps. So it is doable. It wasn't pretty, but it was doable.
I know.
I mean, we'll excuse the cat back, but
the upper back is okay. Upper back rounding is okay. But once you get that lower back rounding, that's when it's a problem. I mean, you can. We don't need to get into all that, but like, it's just we understand lower back rounding bad, upper back rounding a little bit at the top, that is fine. I mean, even with like pulling movement, if you have that upper back rounding in the top and you're getting that stretch in the upper back and even the lats, like that's kind of what you're looking for. If we're talking hypertrophy purposes.
Yeah. And if it creates a mechanical advantage that puts you in a position that would be better if you were really focusing on that, like shoulders down back feel, then it's like, it's almost worth it. And the more that I hear from like the chiropractors that are like, no, you got to really like go and really fix your posture, or the long-term power lifters that are like, it doesn't matter, I do this. It's like, all it really matters, that my personal belief, take it for what it's worth, is that motion in the spine is the big problem. It's not the position. It's like, if you can lock it in and keep it there, as long as those discs are supported by the muscle pressing against them and locking them into place, your risk for herniation is going to go way down. It's not eliminated, but it's like chances are you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like you adapt to it.
Perfect.
And on top of that, you adapt to it. Like the reason that some guys can go so hunchback is because they've calcified over so many years that their spine is like so dense that it's probably fine.
And it's, and like that technique has been practiced so many times that it's just like vertebrae locked in, and it's just like that the whole time. It's not like,
have
that happening.
Exactly. And that's the stuff that comes from like you, for example, walking the walk, like going into that 600. Have you gotten to 700?
Yeah.
So you've been in the 700 range.
Yeah.
And then you see some like form perfectionist on Instagram, like you're going to wreck your back. And you're like, really?
I know. Yeah. I have my upper back rounds, and it always has. And I've had disc issues before years and years ago, but it was all lower back. And that was because of just like pushing the reps, doing something and having some rounding at the bottom. And that was, with the earlier days of technique not being totally locked in with those heavier weights. But as I got better and stronger and really focused on keeping that technique and understanding that a little bit of that rounding at the top was okay, that made it so that I wasn't trying to think so much about like, oh, it's like, I got to keep everything like super back like this all the time. It was like, okay, go with that position that you can lock in and keep locked in. And once I started doing that, I also switched to sumo from conventional because that allowed me to be more like, so if there's my back, sumo allowed me to be like this. Conventional, I was a little like that. And
that's what made the difference for me, because then you're not as leaned over. Like the leverage takes it off your back more going to sumo.
Right.
But I mean, the tension is exactly like the whole point of the thing. That I had to learn that one the hard way, because everybody's like convinced if you do deadlifts, like at some point you're going to go snap. And it's like the only person that I've ever seen that happen to is me. So like, and that was on a warm up. And that was on a warm up video, like trying to go for speed, like, and that was a lack of tension. So it's like, as long as you're squeezing like crazy, your hands are squeezing like crazy, your feet are pushing through the floor, like you're trying to like push them underneath the floor, 9.9 out of 10 people are going to be fine.
Right.
But yeah, we just went off on a tangent, but we were talking shit on these long intros where they shoot the shit. And then here we are.
It's related. This is,
but
this is what we're going to talk about: straps and deadlifts.
basically, but I'll do like an intro so we don't have to like lose our flow here. But I will bring it back to what you were talking about around the whole anxiety and like dealing with it, and like how like ashwagandha was like a thought, like potentially helping with that. What have you experienced when it comes to, because I know myself, like I get super anxious when I'm not working out consistently. Like what do you do like now that like you're a father and a teacher and you have like a million stressors? How does exercise help with all that?
So I kind of go back and forth as to whether I think the exercise itself is like a therapy. Like I've seen people say stuff like, if you're using exercise as your therapy, then you need to really go see a therapist. And it's like, yeah, but for some people who don't have that mindset, like going into the gym and like smashing big weights really does help. Like my brother-in-law, I've written training programs for him before, and he's been starting to get into it. He's not like a fitness enthusiast, but he likes working out. He uses his lunch break. And he told me one day, this is probably like a month ago, he's like, I had a rough day at work today. I can't wait till we get to the gym. I'm going to hit a deadlift PR today. And then like the next day I texted him, I'm like, hey man, how'd that workout go? And he just responded, deadlifting should be therapy. And it works for him. He has a stressful job, man. And it was like, it really worked for him. So it really depends on people's, on you. And I think, with you talking about like dealing with like training, and I'll put nutrition in there. The most important thing, and I know people say things all the time, like the most important thing, but like when you're talking about these things, the thing that is the most important is fitting it into a way that works for you. And if you find that a certain way of doing it is stressful, then that shouldn't be the way that you're doing it. So like the thing that you and I talked about that like got us into doing this now was like the macros thing and like putting certain macros at certain parts of the day. And I won't go too much into that now in case that's something that you want to elaborate on, but it's like taking what you need to do and spacing it in your day in a way that works for your schedule. So like I currently train 6 days a week, and 4 of those days are double sessions. So twice a day. It's not like I'm doing a ridiculous amount of volume. I'm not doing like a full workout in the morning and then a full workout in the afternoon. I'm taking my 1 day's worth of volume and I'm putting part of it in the morning, about half an hour during my lunch break at school because I have the time. And then I'm taking the other half of the workout and I'm putting it at a later part of the day, either right after school on my way home to pick up the kids because I have a little bit of time before I pick them up, or I'll pick them up and I'll bring them home. I have a full gym at home and they'll come into the weight room with me and I've got some little dumbbells. My son loves to play with the bands and the chains and they'll play.
Do you have that Fisher Price one?
No, because I want to teach them how to use the real ones. I have like 15-pound technique bars and a PVC pipe, so I teach them how to use the real ones. And
okay.
But it's like fitting that in. So like taking one workout's worth of volume and splitting it up into 2. And that's not just something that people who don't have the time could be doing. If you think about like the intensity that you have in the beginning of your workout and how intense you can just attack the weights. And then you get to like the second half of the workout and you're starting to drag a little bit and you're not really feeling the mind muscle connection and you're just like, oh, this is not really fun anymore. You're getting into that like junk volume period. So if you hit the first part of the workout at its own separate time and you just dominate that workout, and then you 6 hours later after you've eaten maybe twice, you've relaxed a little bit, you go and you attack this part of the workout with the same intensity that you took this part of the workout, you're now hitting that whole entire day's worth of volume with the intensity and the mindset that you should have approached the entire workout with. So it's like the saying where you have like, you say an athlete is in mid-season form. An athlete is in mid-season form because they have the first half of the season's preparations behind them, so they're sharp, they're effective, yet they don't have a full season's worth of wear and tear and injuries on them. So like mid-season form, you're in stride, like that's when you're the best. If you can have mid-season form in a workout, it's like after you're warmed up, but you're still fresh, you're motivated. If you break your session up into 2, you can do that here and you can do that here. So you have your entire day's worth of mid-season form. Nobody says like, oh, they're looking great, they're end of season form. It's like, no, they're fucked up right now. They can't wait for the season to be over and they're tired and they're fatigued. So like end of season form would be junk volume the whole entire time. So by doing that, it's like mid-season form the entire time. So that could optimize your training, but it also makes it so that you're not stressed about like, when am I going to find an hour and a half to work out? I don't have an hour and a half to work out. It's like, okay, but you do probably have 2 30 to 45 minute chunks of time that you could do it. You know, first morning, during your lunch break, right after work, after everyone goes to sleep, you know, like whatever it works out. You're like, I have 2 little kids, so they go to bed at 7:30. It's like, okay, I like to be in bed by 9-ish, but if I get a half-hour workout between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, that's enough time for me to like relax, do what I need to do, get ready for the next day, and then fall asleep at a reasonable time. So that is something that works very well for me. 10 years ago, that would not have worked. That would have been stupid. I'd be like, why am I going to waste all this time? School ends at 3 o'clock. I'm getting paid to supervise the weight room. Remember Mr. Dexter? He was my training partner, a guidance counselor at the school. He was a single guy. I was married, didn't have kids. And it was like, all right, we have 3 hours after school. Like my wife doesn't come home until 6 something. It's 3 o'clock. I've got all this time to just do whatever. Like I can spend 10 minutes between deadlift sets. So at that time, putting in a 3-hour workout, that was what worked for me. But now
it made sense.
I don't have 3 hours to myself ever. Like even when I'm sleeping, I'm getting called from my kids' rooms to come play with them or, you know, bring them drinks or something. So it really has to be like what works best for you. And you can apply that same to your diet. Did you have questions about diet that you wanted me to just specifically address, or do you want me to just kind of go on?
Nothing specifically. All I'm thinking right now is I'm so jealous about like 22-year-old me that had time to do the 3-hour workouts too. And every single person over the age of 30, 40 was like, just wait. just wait, you're not going to have time. And now starting a business up, I'm like, crap, I don't even have like 30 minutes.
I know. I remember you posted something years ago about like, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, something. And I had Connor, your brother, for those of you who don't know, I had in class, and I was like, yo, tell Brian to stop posting that stuff. I think my son was just born and I was going like dealing with like not sleeping.
I caught you at the worst possible time.
I know. I was like, tell him that if he wants to come spend the night at my house and see what it's like between the hours of 8 and 6 a.m., then come on over and you can see if we really do have the same 24 hours in a day.
I think it's just a rite of passage. Every early 20s trainer at some point has put that up. Like, I can get like 2 hours in the gym no problem. I don't get why these people are so lazy.
I know. I saw somebody posted something where it was like, oh, these 20-year-old life coaches talking about like, my routine at 6 a.m. I have my chai tea, I meditate, I do this. And it's like by 6 a.m., my 5-year-old and my 3-year-old are fighting over this. I don't have anybody younger than that. And then they were like, and the 1-year-old has already knocked over the Christmas tree 3 times. My dog is shit on the floor already.
Eric Cressy. I remember that one.
Yeah. It is like, you don't understand, and this just goes back to that, like, what works for you thing. Like, you can't knock 20-year-old fit influencers or coaches or whatever, because that's what works for them. And that's how they're doing things. But if you're going to be a practitioner or a trainer or a coach, it's not about what works for you. It's about what works for the people that you are trying to service or who you are working for. So, it all comes down to compliance. Like, is the person, the trainer, the lifter, whoever, the person who is training, are they able to comply with the plan? If you can't comply with the plan sucks. It could be the best plan ever, like the most optimal plan in the world. But if you can stick to it for 2 weeks, then you're going to get no results. But like, if you can have a plan that's going to get you 85 to 90% of those results, and you can stick to it for a year or 2 or make it your lifestyle, it's like, okay, well, that's going to blow away that perfect plan because you're doing it for so much longer. It's just an exponential thing. It's like 80% times 5 years or 100% times 2 weeks. It's like, well, it's like, no question. The one that you can stick with is the one that's going to work. So like the way I eat, and look, yesterday was a perfect example. It couldn't happen any better. The way that I organize my macros, I am meticulous. Like, it's down to the gram every single day. And is that stressful? No, I like doing that. So like, not knowing would give me anxiety. Knowing exactly what I've got, I'm like, okay, I'm not worried about this because I've got it all typed up. Everything is taken care of. I know exactly what I'm consuming for the day. So as long as I just keep track of it, I'm not going to be stressed about it. And it's like being in absolute control of my intake, body composition, etc. So like, if I know what I want to eat today and I push a large portion of the carbs and most of the fat to the end of the day, when I have dinner with my family, daddy doesn't look like he's dieting. My kids see me eating whatever. We eat whatever we want. If my wife comes home and she's like, oh, I really want pizza, I'm like, you got it. Pizza it is. We're having pizza. And now that we live in Ohio, we don't have the delicious East Coast Italian food. So it's easy to track the macros because I'll get like frozen pizzas from Aldi or Trader Joe's or somewhere. And they're actually like, we have a few that we really like, and that's what we eat as pizza. Yeah. So I can actually track those macros because it is actually provided on the box. But like, ordering out pizza will be kind of different. But Ohio pizza from restaurants is just trash. So we don't eat that. But like, I'll save most of those carbs and fats, most of the fats actually. The carbs I space out around the workout too, but push them towards the end of the day so that I can have hamburgers and tater tots for dinner with my kids. And we're all eating food that we're enjoying, and they don't see me as like having these bro meals or like having super low carb, low fat meals, because it's been pushed to that time of the day. Because nutrient timing, while it can be contributing to an optimal diet plan, isn't going to get you most of your results. Calories and macros, they're going to get you 80%. 80% of your results are coming from calories and macros. Nutrient timing, maybe 10, So like, if I'm pushing a big portion of that food towards the end of the day, that increases my compliance. So the compliance increases, and I can follow through with it because it's easy on my family. So my perfect example that I said I was going to talk about yesterday, I usually pick up the kids from school. My wife did yesterday. She got off a little early. She doesn't usually get off until like between 6 and 7. She calls me yesterday. I'm actually in the parking lot of their school. And she's like, oh, hey, did you pick the kids up yet? I'm like, no, I'm just about to walk in. She's like, oh, can I pick them up? I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. I can have 10 minutes to myself. So then she's like, well, I was thinking maybe we go out for an early dinner. I'm like, cool, that sounds good. We went to a Mexican restaurant. And I had 190 grams of carbs, 50 grams of fat, and like 60 grams of protein left over that I still hadn't had. I had my post-workout shake. I had my pre-workout meal, my 2 breakfasts. I had already had that. And it was like 40-ish grams of carbs between 40 and 60 grams of carbs. And the fat was like less than 5 grams of fat per meal. So then when she was like, let's go out, I'm just like, no problem. Because I can pick a meal I got chicken fajitas. And it's like, I can make chicken fajitas fit into 190 grams of carbs and 50 grams of fat, no problem. And I wasn't even concerned about it. And if I had been like super meticulous, I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go out to dinner. And it's like, well, why not? Well, it doesn't fit my macros. It's like, all right, but then that's being a douchebag. Like that's an asshole. Like, oh, the kids aren't going to be able to go out. My daughter's 3. She's a COVID baby. She has no understanding of like social interactions. And it's like, we have to go out and have an enjoyable meal together. Let's do that because that increases the overall well-being of the family. And it's just like, there's no reason to be so meticulous about it in instances like that. If my wife asked me if we could go out to a Mexican restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, that would be a problem. But like one meal every now and again, it's not a big deal. And especially when I have the macros lined up to do that, it's just like, yeah, sure, no problem. It's not an issue at all.
It really just comes down to priorities, really, because like how you were saying, like, do you want that as like a thing in your life is like, oh, we can go out whenever you want. We shouldn't be doing it all the time, but I don't want to be that guy to say no. It's like, if you're not some competitor bringing money in with your physique, then who the hell are you to deny your family an experience?
Right.
And it's just crazy. Like I'm doing it right now because like shifted priorities. My girlfriend's got some stressful stuff going on. She's a first-year resident as a doctor. And I'm like, I want to provide as little stress as possible from my end. So I'm not going to be like, all right, we have to have this for dinner because my macros matter. And it's like, I'm hitting calories and protein and whatever else, that's fine. Like to your point, leaving like, I tell clients, like leave like 1,000 calories if you feel like it's going to be like one of those nights. Like you could do a lot at pretty much any restaurant, 1,000 calories or less.
Right. And if it's one meal out of one day over the course of weeks, it doesn't matter at all.
Exactly. Even if you did go over in calories, it's like it's a blip in the radar.
Right. I was going to say something else about that.
While you catch that thought, I wanted to go back to what you were talking about, like with the mid-season form and everything. It sounds a lot like one of the guys that a lot of people in the strength and conditioning world hate on, Mike Boyle. Have you know?
I've heard. I can't think exactly of what.
He was the guy that shit on box squatting.
Okay.
And he gets a lot of crap about that, but he like talks about mid-season form for athletes, how like getting in the gym and doing 2 to 3 times a week with like 3 sets of like the main moves, like push, pull, hinge, squat, and that's it. And it's like that mid-season form allows athletes to gain strength as they go, or at least maintain it. And it's like, for most people, that mid-season form, that mid-season effort is something you can do for the long term and just keep it going. Now, if you're striving for maximal gains like you are, or like strength and stuff, you do have to do like the cycles where you start off low volume, creep it up, overreach, and then come right back down and run that. And in an ideal world, yeah, that'd be great. But like a ton of people, I think I would even venture to say the majority of people that want to stay fit and active, that mid-season form, maintaining that, like that's where the magic is. Because at least from training people for as long as like I was at that place, like 7 years, you realize that deloads come in the form of vacations, getting sick, kid gets sick, and it's like life is a deload. It'll find one for you.
I build my training program that I have here in school. I build it around like weeks where the kids are going to have days off, and like, okay, Easter break is coming up. That's going to be our deload week. And like, we build up a volume. We'll hit like we'll do like a max rep set. And then it's like, okay, guys, we're going on break this week. Or like, I'm only going to see you once this week. Or so we'll do a light week that week. And it's just like, it just builds in. And like, there are days when the kids are absent. Like I had a girl who missed class last week because she had to get her hair done. And she was like, oh, Mr. Brennan, I'm not going to be in class today. I'm like, oh, why not? She's like, oh, I'm getting my hair done. I'm just like, what?
Like, that's a thing?
Because of that. So yeah, it's like if you're not competing at a higher level, then that kind of stuff is going to happen. And like you were saying, it's like the higher you're trying to achieve, the higher you need to be paying attention to some of those details. But that's when the compliance needs to be higher. But if you're trying to just maintain as the general population, you don't need to do a lot of those special things. So then you can kind of water down how intense things need to be, and then compliance is a lot easier. So it's like complying to the plan is a lot easier when it's easier to do. So the more things you have to do, the harder it is. But it's like, okay, well, the task at hand is going to be higher anyway. And if you don't think you can deal with that level of compliance, then you don't care enough to do that high level of a thing. So just get it out of your mind. Like, don't worry about it then.
Yeah.
Like if
and back to, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But back to what you were saying about like scientific studies and all that, it's like literally controlling everything to focus on this one thing. And it's like all these perfect programs are a collection of evidence based on everybody specializing in just doing that one thing. So now you're taking like 12, 15 different concepts that have been done perfectly just as that one thing. And you're expecting somebody else to do that when it took all the effort in the world just to do one of those 15 for research. It's like, there's the disconnect.
It's so many variables.
So many things.
Take scientific studies and it's like, okay, there's this one variable that we tested and this is how this works. And then it's like, what about all these other variables that will come into play in a practical setting that could affect that? Like, this isn't a training one, but this is like a nutrition one that I was just thinking about. I saw somebody talking about it yesterday. And it was like 10 grams of protein can be digested per hour. So there will be no reason to consume 60 grams of protein at a time because the body can only absorb 10 grams per hour. And that's like the whole, okay, you can only have a shake of like 20 to 30 grams because your body can't digest the rest of it. It's like that study that showed that was done using pure whey isolate and nothing else was in the system. If you're consuming food throughout the day that is more than just 200 grams of whey isolate, you're consuming other things, it slows that down. So the more of other stuff that you're eating, a meal of chicken and rice and broccoli, the prototypical bro meal, it's going to slow it down. You've got fiber, you've got a little bit of fat, the carbs, you've got all this stuff that slows that down. So that 10 grams per hour thing just goes right out the window because it's like all of these other that come into the digestibility of that one nutrient. It makes it so that it's like, okay, yeah, we have this data, but it's totally not applicable to any real life situation.
Exactly. And I feel like this might take a dangerous turn, but I was going to say that also that logic applies to the whole sugar debate. Like when people get like all up in arms, they're like, you got to avoid sugar. You got to avoid sugar. Pixie sticks. Yeah. Avoid them. Fruit. Yes. Even worse. No, that's not how it works. Like when you have a lot of things in your system and it slows it down, those like spikes in your blood sugar don't happen as like drastically. That's why like anybody who says fruit, like sugar and fruit is bad for you is a fucking idiot.
So stupid. You see
really earning the explicit. What?
Yeah, Lane Norton posted something about that just today because he's really been on this kick of just like blasting people. And this is one about the fruit thing and how some of these like internet doctors say
that was a dentist, the recent one.
What is it?
The recent one that went viral was a freaking dentist.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what so many of these ones are. But it's like, if you're looking at it in a real world application, like me right now, I'm in a fat loss phase. I'm losing exactly what I was planning on losing. 1.2 pounds per week is exactly what I'm on pace for. I eat so much fruit throughout the day because it's delicious and the volume of fruit is so high that it's keeping you satisfied while providing such a small amount of actual calories. Like blueberries, like take blueberries, for example, you have like this huge like handful of blueberries and it's like 10 grams of carbs because most of it is just water. And like that is not contributing to fat gain. It's not causing your liver to spew out fat like somebody said. It's just, yeah, and with it being a sugar, it's like you're combining it with other nutrients, and that insulin spike is just, it's just, I don't want to say flattening the curve. That's a dangerous topic. I have my class starting in a minute.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue?
Oh, I'll bring you on another time. We could do it another time.
All right. Yeah,
we'll make this a 2 or a 3-parter or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool because I would like to keep talking. I feel like I have more things to go on. I feel like we just kind of got onto the topic that we wanted to, and my class starts at 12:18 and it's 12:17 right now, and I got to go because they don't come to me. My weight room is in a different building, so I have to like go get them and bring them over. So,
well, go learn them a thing or two.
I know, every day. You know how we do.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Can't wait to have you on again, and I'll see you next time.
Of course, man.
Later.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a 5-star review and make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you can catch all the upcoming episodes of the Fitness and Nutrition Simplified podcast.